Good evening and welcome to Current Issues. I'm your host, Hesham Tillawi. Welcome to the program, ladies and gentlemen. Tonight we will have an exciting night. We will be speaking with special guest all the way from London, Yvonne Ridley. You probably heard the name and you don't know who Yvonne Ridley is. Well, Yvonne Ridley made international news back in September 2001 when she was captured by the Taliban. Now you remember who Yvonne Ridley is. She is a British journalist. She worked for BBC, radio and TV, CNN, ITN, many newspapers like The Observer, the Express Daily, and many other prestigious television stations and radio. She was also a senior editor with the Al Jazeera English until she decided they were not playing ball, and she decided to, well, actually, they did not like what she wrote. Even Al Jazeera did not like what Yvonne Ridley wrote. And they were choosing her articles depends on which way, if it was we're not going to get into that because that's not what we are actually going to be doing tonight. Maybe we can have her on later and speak about her Al Jazeera experience. But tonight, ladies and gentlemen, Yvonne Ridley was one of those people, courageous people, who actually broke the siege on Gaza. Over 100 vehicles, some people say 200 vehicles, took off on February 14th from London. They made their journey all the way to Gaza, and actually they visited Gaza. Yvonne came back a few hours ago to London, and she will be speaking with us here momentarily. You probably did not hear about the convoy that went to Gaza. That started by Yvonne Ridley, George Gallaway, and many others. All of you know who George Gallaway is. Well, ladies and gentlemen, if you did not hear about this 100-car or 200 cars convoy that went to Gaza, probably because the media that we talked about many times probably did not bother to cover that. And if they did, it was probably a mere mention of probably a few seconds. And probably on the 25th page in the newspaper. But actually this was a historic journey from London to Gaza. It was exciting going through this journey. You know, some places it was pleasant, other places was not as pleasant. And actually they almost had huge problem in Egypt, but finally with their courageous actions and civility, they were able to break the siege. But if you did not hear about it, you know, we're going to show you a little clip, it's about not even a minute long, of why sometimes you don't hear what you're supposed to hear about the Middle East. Many of you, well, not really many of you, but some people out there think when we talk about the media being controlled by a certain group, mainly Zionists, people start saying, oh, you believe in that conspiracy theory things. Well, you know, this is what we're going to actually play for you is an old recording from 1972, a conversation between Richard Nixon and Billy Graham. Pay attention and try to read the captions on the screen if you don't hear the audio very well, because even back then, back in 1972, Richard Nixon also, not just Hesham Tillawi, but Richard Nixon knew who was controlling the media. Let's play that clip very quickly.
Nixon. Works or the listening in agreement is the Reverend Billy Graham.
This stranglehold has got to be broken or this country is going to go down the drain. Yes, sir. I can't ever say it.
Today, Dr.
Nixon's
Graham
own
declined to
dark view
discuss
of
how the world works, where the enemy is not just the communists, it's also the media. Listening in agreement is the Reverend Billy Graham.
This stranglehold has got to be broken or this country is going to go down the drain. Yes, sir. I can't ever say it, but I believe it.
Today, Dr. Graham...
Okay. He can't say it, but he believed it too. Billy Graham believed it. Richard Nixon believed it. Who was controlling at that time, in 1972, who was controlling the media here in the United States? Well, guess what? They still control it. It didn't come from here. It came from, actually, Richard Nixon, the president of the United States at that time. Well, ladies and gentlemen, the journey to Gaza, it started in London, and we have a little clip to show you exactly what we're going to be talking about with Yvonne Ridley tonight, which is when it started in London and ended in Gaza. Let's go ahead and play that clip, and when we come back, we will be joined with Yvonne Ridley.
The extraordinary efforts of George Gallaway, Yvonne Ridley, and hundreds and thousands of other people up and down the country who have put together this convoy in a matter of a few short weeks to go from here to the Rafah crossing with more than £1 million worth of aid for the Palestinian people. So I'm here today on behalf of the Stop the War Coalition to help see this historic convoy off, and we're going to have just a few speeches here from some of the people who've helped to organise this, to send our brothers and sisters on their way. And first of all, I'd like to introduce a woman who's become very well known as an anti-war campaigner and a campaigner for justice for the Palestinian people and all people throughout the Muslim world over the last few years. Will you please welcome Sister Yvonne Ridley.
Assalamu alaikum, welcome friends and brothers and sisters. This is a historic occasion. This is an amazing landmark journey. It's going to see the largest British convoy crossing North Africa since the Second World War. It's more than 280 people, more than a mile long, more than 100 vehicles. This is the only roadmap in town worth talking about. This is what people power can do. The politicians have been talking for 60 years and have achieved nothing, and look what you have all achieved in a matter of weeks. We're on our way to Gaza. Thank you.
The organiser and leader of this convoy, George Gallaway.
Thank you very much, Andrew, and thank you very much to the Stop the War Coalition for the support they've given to this great enterprise from the moment that it was announced on the stage at the great demonstration on January 10th in Kensington High Street. Thank you to Gada Razuki, to Yvonne Ridley, to Kevin Ovenden and all the other volunteers who have throughout the country, from Manchester, from Birmingham, who have Dewsbury, See, I shouldn't have started down this road. It's significant that this is a movement of the streets, as Mr. Ben said. This is a movement of the streets of Britain, north, south, east and west. This is not top down. This is not a convoy of big personalities and celebrities. This represents the bedrock of the British working class communities of England, Scotland, Ireland and Wales. And I think that we are the best of British. We come in peace. We come in peace to the governments and the people of the region. We come in peace. We mean no harm to anyone. But we will not be stopped. We are carrying the hopes of millions in our own country and in many other countries. We're carrying the means of life desperately required by hungry, cold and homeless people in Gaza. And we will not be stopped. We will travel to Rafah and we will go through the gates of Rafah. So I thank you very much, all those who've raised £1 million, unbelievable, in 4 weeks, and still being raised. And we can take donations right up until the moment that we cross the border into Palestine, and we hope that we will. To all those who brought their vehicles, to all those who filled those vehicles, all those who are going to leave these vehicles in Palestine, to all those who've come today to see us off and who will be with us in spirit, we are grateful, and we carry your hopes, and we will carry our flags and those hopes high all the way to Palestine. Palestine is that way, and we are going very, very soon.
The news, large aid convoy.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Well, that's very much explains what we are going to be talking about tonight with Yvonne Ridley, who I understand she's with us from London. Yvonne, good morning to you. I know it's 2 o'clock in the morning there.
Yes, it is.
Well,
good morning.
Unfortunately, it's live TV, so we could not pre-record it. I wish if we could have, but I think getting you at 2 o'clock in the morning, you're probably full of energy, or you're ready to go to sleep.
Well, I think we're still all very high about what has happened, what has been achieved. And, you know, just yesterday I was in the hands of some beautiful little children, some orphans from Gaza. It's, you know, I've still got the dust on my boots of Gaza.
Well, I can tell you, you know, what you went through. The last since February 14th, I believe you started the journey there, wasn't it?
That's right. We called it a Valentine for Palestine, and set off February the 14th from Hyde Park. More than 100 vehicles. Not all of them made it, but there were some amazing stories on the way.
Okay. Now, Yvonne, I want to, you know, people are familiar with you. I'm going to ask you very quickly about, you know, Afghanistan, and hopefully we'll have you back here to talk about that in detail and about your conversion to Islam. But people normally, you know, probably know you more as the British journalist who was captured or was captive by the Taliban, and then you converted to Islam actually about 2.5 years after your release. Very quickly, just tell our viewers, why would you convert to a religion of your captors?
Yeah, the whole experience triggered an interest in Islam. It was an academic interest, as a journalist covering the region, I realized that Islam was a way of life, not just a faith for these people. And so to have any authority writing about the Middle East and Asia, I felt that I needed to study Islam, and also I did say to my captors, if you let me go, I promise I will read your Holy Quran. And I did, and 2.5 years later I embraced Islam, but it wasn't a big leap of faith because I was a practicing Christian, so I was still worshipping the same God. For me, it was just a slightly different move and a different methodology.
So basically, reading the Quran is what did it for you, not the experience that you had in Afghanistan, I'm sure.
That's right.
Hey. Now, let's get into the Gaza journey. Was it, how many vehicles did you all take down there?
Well, there was just over 100 vehicles. Some, as I said before, didn't make it. In fact, we lost our first vehicle in France when the engine blew up. And that in itself created an amazing story as the men from Gloucester in Britain were attempting to fix it. Someone who was also a convert to Islam came past and asked what was happening. They explained, and he was so moved, he went out and bought them a new vehicle.
Wow.
And insured it for them and got them on their way.
Where was that?
So the first vehicle never left France, but a new one was bought for them, and that did make it.
Okay. Now, what countries did you go through? I know you had to go through all, like Morocco, Tunisia, Libya, Egypt, all the way. So how many countries? About 9 different countries before you got to Palestine?
Yeah, we started off with, after we left London, we got the ferry to Belgium, from Belgium to France, France to Spain, Spain to Morocco. What happened next was really interesting.
Now,
Morocco and
Yvonne,
Algeria opened their borders for the first time since 1994. They opened their land border, and that was purely to let the convoy through. That was a really historic landmark occasion.
Okay. Now, tell me the difference, like going through European countries and Arab countries. Just describe the scene for us, or the atmosphere there, how people received you going through all these countries.
People especially in France and Spain, knew a little bit about the convoy and were coming up into the street to hand money over and wish us well. Not in huge numbers. There was a woman who gave her wedding ring. She just took it off and went running over and gave it to one driver. I think that happened in France. But once we hit the Maghreb, once we hit North Africa, we really were overwhelmed by the reaction of ordinary people who waited in the dark, sometimes in the pouring rain, for our convoy to arrive, and they all wanted just to show their solidarity with the people from Gaza.
Now, I understand in Morocco you had quite a reception, and there was something that was scheduled but was cancelled, but I understand that you actually received like an official, there were like policemen and some other officials in Morocco who actually received you when you first got off the ferry?
Yes, well, from arriving in Morocco right through to Egypt, we had a large police presence. Each country handled us in a slightly different way, but basically we felt anyway that the leaderships of most of those countries, with the exception of Libya, wanted us quickly out of their country. They didn't want us to go through the capital cities. We were pushed through towns and villages as quickly as possible. And
wow, that's strange.
The leadership of each country was slightly afraid of
You know,
the reaction of
I actually expected Muammar Gaddafi to have a completely different treatment.
Well, you know, he was amazing, although we didn't get to see him. The Libyan authorities were fantastic. Not only did they make sure that ordinary Libyan people got the chance to see the convoy, they actually doubled the size of our convoy. I think it was the Gaddafi Charitable Foundation matched our vehicles in number, not in size. I mean, they gave huge, great big articulated lorries to the convoy, jammed with aid, and they set off with us. And once we had the Libyans on board, we went from this slow-moving, mile-long convoy to this massive 2-mile-long convoy. Well, it must have been longer than 2 miles, and it really was a spectacular sight.
And then you got to Egypt. Now, that was a totally different story. What happened there in Egypt?
Well, we had a police escort of unbelievable proportions. Hundreds, if not thousands, of police escorted us through Egypt, through the towns. They didn't want us to go through Cairo. Partly I can understand that, because Cairo traffic is crazy anyway, so throw in a convoy by this time of more than 200 vehicles, and it's a recipe for disaster. So yes, I can partly understand why they wouldn't want us to drive through Cairo, but the need to seem to want us away from public gaze was quite astonishing, and a little bit disheartening for, from a Muslim country. And because of that, we didn't really get to see too many Egyptians. But on our last day, as news of the convoy was reaching the momentum, thousands of people seemed to defy the large police presence, and they came out to wish us well, which was very, very moving.
Now, when you got to El Arish, I understand that they asked you to break up the convoy into 4 or 5 cars, and you refused to do that?
Well, that was an astonishing day. George Gallaway had set off for a VIP reception at the Rafah border, and we were ready to follow. And without any warning, the Egyptian police made it quite clear that we could only move in numbers of 5 and 6 vehicles. And they also then sprung the surprise that we could only have medical aid on one convoy, and any non-medical aid would go on another route through an Israeli checkpoint. And this was just thrown at us after, to all intents and purposes, our leader had left. And we said, no, we're not doing that. And what followed then was some astonishing scenes, which resulted in the vehicles, the British vehicles, being impounded in 2 car parks in Al Arish. And we tried to get messages through to George. The PR spin machine was assuring him that everything was fine and that we would be following shortly. And they were urging him to cross the Rafah border. And meanwhile, our frustration was such that in the end, several members of the convoy just went and removed the police barriers, and 30 vehicles managed to get out of the compound. The police then rushed the people in the convoy and tried to overpower them. and instead the convoy members put up an extremely robust defence, and the police retreated, and then hundreds of riot squad police moved in wearing visors and shields and wielding sticks, and they swept in to beat back the convoy members, but again they gave these unarmed people just really defended themselves in such a way that the riot police were also driven back, and then there was an uneasy standoff. Once again, we got messages through to George that all was not well, and the organisers again then the Egyptians again tried to convince him that this was a slight exaggeration and the convoy would be joining him shortly. And then what happened by this time, night was beginning to fall and the whole area was lit up with stadium-style lighting. And suddenly there was a power cut.
Okay.
At the time that the lights went out, the sky just rained bricks and bottles and stones thrown by youth and men in their early 20s. Anti-Hamas slogans were daubed on our vehicles, and this attack went on for about 6 or 7 minutes before the lights went back on.
Wow.
The riot squad police stood there quite impassive and didn't come to our aid. People were cut and bleeding and had to go to hospital. And at that point, George said he was coming back.
Okay.
And again, the Egyptian PR machine tried to persuade him that there hadn't been any such incidents, that it was merely some exuberant young children who'd thrown a few pebbles at the convoy members. George obviously preferred to and trusted us and believed us, and he headed back. When he arrived in Al Arish, he arrived back just in time for the lights to go out again and for a second wave of attack in which stones and bricks were hurled at convoy members. And he watched in disbelief as the police stood there and did nothing.
Wow.
The authorities would have us believe that this attack was made by some factions from Fatah who dislike Hamas, but we actually could not believe that Palestinians would do this to a convoy taking aid to Palestine. And so I think we felt very suspicious about actually who was behind it.
Well,
and,
definitely. Now, let me...
it wasn't convincing.
Okay, but eventually you did make it to Gaza. Now, what was it that you took with you besides the vehicles? I understand you took medicines. What was it exactly that you took there?
We took medicines, we took toys, food, generators, tools, you name it, we just took it. Okay. And each vehicle was inspected box by box. Because
inspected box by box by who?
The Egyptian authorities.
Now, who did you give?
Could only take medical aid in through Palestine.
Now, who did you turn the vehicles and what's in them over to in Palestine?
Well, once we got to Palestine, we handed them over to the democratically elected government.
Okay. And do you think, and I'm sure probably the main reason or the meaning of the whole journey is to break the siege, because I'm sure Gaza needs a lot more medicines and a lot more toys than what you were able to take. But I think what you have accomplished is something that many governments could not accomplish, which is to break the siege on Gaza. Why do you think you were allowed to actually break that siege?
I think that the Egyptians realized they couldn't stop us They couldn't stop us. There were hopes and wishes from Muslims right across North Africa. The convoy had built up such a momentum that by the time it reached Egypt, they couldn't stop us. When they tried to wreck our convoy in Al-Arish, they met with a resistance not usually seen against the police. And I think that the Egyptian authorities realized that if they didn't let us through, that they could end up with a very dangerous situation on their hands, because people power was beginning to change things.
Now,
and
Yvonne,
of course, dictatorships do not like people power.
Now, let me ask you this. Do you think that the journey was more symbolic than actually materially help Gaza? Because, you know, Libya tried to send a ship over there. They could not go, and many countries, including Qatar, tried to go there, and they could not. So was this trip more symbolic, that you broke the siege, than actually helping Gaza?
Yes, it was symbolic. I mean, if it was all purely about aid, we would have gone the quickest route for a start off. We would have just driven through Europe, or we would have flown the aid over. This was a very symbolic trip. Not only were we carrying medical aid, we were carrying cash in large sums of money. Some of that cash went to charities in Gaza, and some of the cash was handed over to the democratically elected government. Now, America, Britain, and the European Union might not like what we did, but it's up to them whether they want to take us to court for doing this. But I don't think that there is a single jury in the land who would convict us.
Okay. Now, for sake of time, we're going to try to speed it up a little bit because we have a lot of people waiting to talk to you. Now, when you got to Gaza, describe the situation for us that 2 months after bombardment stopped. What did you find out? Were you shocked? Was it still... Tell me about Gaza. What did you find there when you got there?
Gaza is wrecked. It was broken before this 22-day war, but now it's in an even worse state, and there is no building going on. There isn't a single pane of glass to be had in Gaza. Every house in Gaza has had its windows shattered or broken or cracked, and there isn't one single plate of glass to replace them. There is no glass in Gaza, and the Israelis will not let any in. There are no building materials in Gaza, so they cannot set about rebuilding. It really is in dire straits. More than 60,000 people without homes who are sleeping in tents. They're the lucky ones. Others don't have tents. It really is a shocking state of affairs.
Okay. Well, we're going to go to the phones with James calling from California on line 1. James, you're up.
Hello.
Yes, hi, you're up.
Am I on the air?
Yes, you are.
Hi, thank you for taking my call, Hesham. It's a great pleasure to have Yvonne on the show. It's James Morris. Yvonne, nice to have you on. I'm so glad we were able to have you on the Liberty Hour. I could get through to you to arrange that.
Hi, James.
Also here with Hesham's excellent program as well. First of all, I wanted to say congratulations. I watched the excellent Press TV coverage at presstv.com, the streaming video link at the top there. You were marvelous. So was MP Gallaway. And again, my heartfelt congratulations to you. And I have a proposal here, actually, if you could convey it to the owner of that boat, whom the Israelis wouldn't allow into Gaza. I believe it's a sailboat. I just saw it in Hesham's video clip here. Phil Turney, my very good friend as well, the USS Liberty survivor, of course, and co-host of the Liberty Hour. He would like to propose, make a proposal to the owner of that boat. He's willing to actually travel on that boat to Gaza. I believe you said that they're going to go up to Larnaca, Lunica in Cyprus, and he's willing to go on that boat and perhaps have the boat named USS Liberty II, something like that, and break the Israeli siege on that vessel with the owner. So if you could pass that along to him, that'd be great. And again, great admirer of your show, The Agenda on Press TV, and it's an honor and a pleasure to be in touch with you and have you as a friend.
Thank you, James.
Thank you. Well, that's such a great suggestion, and I will mention it. You said that the Israelis wouldn't let it in. Actually, the Israelis wanted the boat to come in through Israel, and the owner of the boat refused. He said if it's not going through Rafah, it's not going any way other than I'll put it in the water and sail it through. And so he will be sailing that boat through at a point in the future. And I think that the boat is now on its way to Libya. I think one of the lorries is driving it to Libya, and at a point sometime in the next few weeks, he will put it in the water and sail it.
What about
into Gaza.
What about the fire engine? Were you able to get that in or no?
Yesterday, as we revisited Al Arish, I saw the fire engine in the compound, and we just couldn't get the fire engine in through Rafah.
Well,
we think that the fire engine will go through this Israeli checkpoint. And George Gallaway has said his office will ring the Egyptian embassy every single day until that fire engine is in the hands of the people of Gaza. But what we did learn, and what is interesting, is that about a quarter of a mile away from the compound there is the Al Arish Sports Stadium. And it no longer has soccer games. It is jam-packed with aid from Saudi Arabia, lorries filled with aid, Saudi Arabia, a lot of other Muslim countries. And it has been there now for 2.5 months, and it's rotting away in this stadium. And it should be going to Gaza.
Okay.
And it hasn't moved.
Well, we have more...
And you have to wonder what on earth the Egyptian Red Crescent is up to, which is headed by Suzanne Mubarak. You know, why is this aid waiting? Why isn't it just going through to Gaza? And in many ways, Egypt is more guilty than Israel of enforcing this brutal siege.
Okay. Well, we're going to go back to the phones. Looks like Phil Turney, host of the Liberty Hour on RBN, is on line 2. Phil, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Can I hear on the phone?
Yes, you can.
Thank you. I'll get off my headset.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Are you... Phil?
Yes.
You have a question for Yvonne?
Yes, I do.
Okay, go ahead. You're on the air.
Okay, yes, Yvonne, I just personally want to thank you very much and for what you have done. You are the Mother Teresa of the Palestinian cause, and you have more guts than most human beings on this earth. And I also want to say that thank you for being on the Liberty Hour, and thank you very much, my good friend, my very good American friend, Hesham, for having you on his show, and that I would like to make sure that everyone knows that, all Americans are behind the great cause that you have, and I believe in you, and I God bless you, and I will be on one of those boats one of these days if I am offered the chance to be so honored. And please thank you again, and God bless you. May the Lord stay with you always. And again, you are the person that led the way, and I am so thrilled about that. And I do apologize for waking you up the other night on the phone frantically. I was worried about you.
Thank you, Phil.
Wow, well, thank you very, very much for those words. I feel really humbled by what he had to say there.
Okay. Well, Phil, I don't know about all Americans supporting the cause. I would question that, but let's hope all good Americans do support that cause. Let's go back to the phones with... Rachel is gone? Okay. We don't have Rachel on. All right. Well, Rachel, if you are still listening or watching the program, give us a call back. We'll put you on. I know she was like waiting for over 40 minutes. Well, Yvonne, do you think you opened up the door to something here? Are you expecting like more and more people to go and visit Gaza? Do you think that's going to happen? Because anytime you have a symbolic thing that takes place, we normally expect more material things to take place. Do you see it that way? Do you think we will see borders open into Palestine? And by the way, I'm glad when George Gallaway talked about going to Palestine, he did not say he was going to Gaza. He said he was going to Palestine, because since Israel started that war on Palestine in Gaza, it seems like all the news media were mentioning nothing but Gaza, 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 and actually many of them were saying Gazans, referring to the Palestinians in Gaza, which I was very much worried and concerned that there was a huge conspiracy out there to actually have George Bush's vision of two-state solutions to actually be the Gaza and the West Bank solution. So I'm glad that George Gallaway said he was going to Palestine and not to Gaza.
Yes, well, of course we have to remember that that it wasn't just about Gaza, although the aid that we did send out was specifically for the war-torn Gaza section. But, you know, as you quite rightly point out, there's another side to Palestine as well, and that's the West Bank. And, of course, the West Bank is the side of Palestine which is run by the Palestinian Authority, Mahmoud Abbas, who is seen as someone that Israel can deal with. So you just think, well, things must be so much better for the Palestinians living in the West Bank, when in fact, because of Mahmoud Abbas's compliance and behavior, Palestinians in the West Bank are not better off. They're worse off. There are more checkpoints now. There are more settlements being built. So you can see that while the Gazans are resisting and constantly resisting, the people in the West Bank who've tried to fall in line with America and Israelis' requirements, they're worse off. So it's not as though there's any incentive to deal with the Israelis.
Okay. Now, let me ask you just a hypothetical question. Why wouldn't you lead a convoy to the West Bank to break the siege off of the Palestinians there with the wall that Israel is building? Do you think that's possible?
It wouldn't have been possible because someone else who is enforcing the brutal siege of Gaza is Mahmoud Abbas. And, you know, he is receiving millions in aid from the European Union. Mm-hmm. And not a penny, not a cent is going into Gaza. So he is also enforcing that brutal siege.
Now, what's wrong with negotiating with Israel? Is there a problem with negotiating with Israel? Do you think Palestine will be liberated by force, or negotiation is the way to go?
Well, they've been negotiating with Israel for over 60 years now, and nothing's been achieved in that 60 years. They've lost more land. There are more settlements. There are about 500,000 illegal settlements now, that homes that have been built on Palestinian land. So, what has been negotiated? Nothing.
Okay.
They've lost more land. There are more checkpoints. There is
what has
just been apartheid war.
Okay. Well, on the other hand, people might say, what has the Qassam rockets done? Have they changed the situation in Gaza? On the contrary, it's going from bad to worse. So that's not working either.
Well, as I said before, you look at the West Bank, which has Mahmoud Abbas, and they have sat down in peace negotiations, and what's happened to the people in the West Bank?
Well,
their lives are more miserable.
They're
they
not
have more
being,
checkpoints.
Yeah, checkpoints are one thing, and F-16s raining bombs on your children at night is another thing. So which one is working here?
Well, Gaza is the largest open-air prison in the world. That is without doubt.
The West Bank is the same thing.
The people in the West Bank can't move around freely. The people in Gaza can.
But they're not, well, they can in Gaza, in that prison, yes, they can. But, I mean, my question to you, I'm not trying to, to put you between a rock and a hard place here. My question, my question is more like, this one is not working and this one is not working. So what's the solution?
Well, that's because Israel does not want peace. Israel does not want peace by any means. Israel wants to extinguish every last Palestinian in that region.
And do you think they will be? Do you think they will be able to accomplish this with Netanyahu coming to power with Avigdor Lieberman?
They have tried for 60 years, and in that time, the Palestinian people have resisted. And the harder that Israel tries, the stronger the desire is for Palestine. And what is interesting is that young Palestinians living in refugee camps around the region want to return. They want to return to their country, and they are growing in numbers in their desire to return. Whereas the amount of young Jewish children, especially in America, who are growing up are feeling uncomfortable about the existence of Israel, about the whole reason Israel was set up, and they are growing less in their desire to have this country. And the number of young American Jews who want to go and settle in Israel is diminishing because, let's face it, it is the least safe place in the world today for Jews to live in.
Okay. Let's go back to the phones with Sandra on line 1. Sandra, you're up.
Yeah, okay.
Oh.
Hello, Hesham?
Yes, that's not a Sandra.
The comment that I want to make, I'm a great fan of your show.
Thank you.
I support the cause 100%. And I'm disappointed that the protests were not stronger than they were. And I was in some of the protests. And my theory, and other people are saying this is not original, that it's very cruel it sounds with the white phosphorus, Israel wants to see what it can get away with as a rehearsal for bombing Iran. That's my theory of why they went so over the top.
Okay. All right. Yvonne, what do you think of his comment that what Israel did in Gaza to very much show this is what we can do in Iran? Do you buy that?
No, not at all, because the people of Gaza have no weapons. They've got a few of these little handmade rockets, which are more of an act of defiance than anything else. If Israel drops anything on Iran, Iran will hit back. and not with Qassam rockets, but with Shabab 3 missiles, with all sorts of military hardware.
Yvonne, if you believe that about the Qassam rocket, then do you agree with me that it is not going to work? Liberating Palestine with Qassam rockets.
Well,
then what is Hamas? What is Hamas doing? You know, you talk to Hamas's leadership. What is their plan? If we know Qassam rockets is not going to do it, so what is going to do it? What are they thinking?
First of all, let's make one thing clear: the ceasefire was never broken by Hamas. It was broken by Israel on November the 4th. The Qassam rockets aren't a defense system. They're not an attack system. It's a signal of resistance. The biggest export that Israel has these days.
Okay. Now, what is Hamas trying to liberate? Let me ask you that. They got Gaza, so what do they want to liberate?
Well, Hamas is first and foremost a political organization with a military wing. It's not the other way around. And they're trying to govern. And they're trying to govern their people in the best way that they can. And I'll tell you
what's
this,
their objective,
if there was an election tomorrow, they would be re-elected.
Okay, what is their objective? What is Hamas's objective?
To govern its people and to survive.
Their people where? In Gaza?
Across Palestine.
Okay, how are they planning on doing that?
If there was an election tomorrow, they would be elected in the West Bank as well.
You really believe so?
Oh, absolutely, yes. Why do you think there are so many Hamas people in the prisons in the West Bank?
Well, on the other hand, there are a lot of Fatah
Hamas
people.
Political prisoners in the West Bank. Mahmoud Abbas, he wouldn't last.
But there's also a lot of Fatah members in prison in Gaza.
Yes, there are several hundred in Gaza.
Did you talk?
And I have to say,
did you meet with any Fatah? Did you meet with any Fatah leaders in Gaza?
Not in a great capacity. Not. I would probably say the second or third ranking down. None of the top officials.
Did you?
But when I went over in the boat last year, one of our people on the boat was a pro-Fatah supporter, and he visited some of his colleagues, should we say, in prison in Gaza, and when he came back, A, he was surprised that he was allowed access to them, and B, he was amazed to see that they were being well fed, well looked after, and had no content
Yvonne,
other than obviously being locked up.
Yvonne, we're running out of time, but I do have to ask you this. Did Al Jazeera cover that trip, and why did you leave Al Jazeera?
Al Jazeera Arab and English did cover the trip as it gained in momentum, and the Arab side did try and join the trip in France, but they didn't have all the paperwork in place. The reason I left is I was sacked, but my complaint with Al Jazeera was with two of the senior management within Al Jazeera. I'm full of respect and admiration for Al Jazeera Arab. It's, it brought a heroic brand of journalism into the Middle East and raised the level of journalism and continues to do so. So I don't actually have an issue with Al Jazeera as such, or the heroic journalists on the Arab side.
Yvonne, I'm sorry, but we're gonna have to bring you back here to talk about Al Jazeera and media in general. I only have time left to say thank you very much for coming on the program, and good night.
Thank you.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we'll see you next Thursday. That's all we have tonight, and we will be bringing Yvonne Ridley again. She's a great person. Good night. go do the right thing.
The views and opinions expressed in the previous program are strictly those of the segment producer and do not reflect the views of Acadiana Open Channel, its staff, board of directors, the City of Lafayette, or Cox Communications.